Welcome to your sociology lesson looking at the concept of secondary socialisation. So last lesson we looked at primary socialisation and looked at how your family teach you your norms and values in those very early months and years of your life. Today I want to explore secondary socialisation and how that continues as you get older. So your title is secondary socialisation, and your objective is to be able to define secondary socialisation and give examples of how it works. So what is it to start with? Essentially, it's how you continue learning your norms and values throughout your life. So what we would call social institutions, things in society that have an impact on us, things like education, media, religion, all of those things continue teaching you norms and values as you get older. Arguably, primary socialisation is more important. It happens first. It has a big influence on you. And we looked at those feral children and how lacking that primary socialisation really impacted on their outcomes and their life. But we don't just learn things from our family. We continue to learn norms and values as we get older through things like the school, the media, workplace, religion, peer group. All have a part to play in teaching you what is acceptable and what isn't. And now we'll go on and have a look at a few examples. So, education, the school, is one of the main factors that influences your secondary socialisation. What you're taught in school helps to shape your understanding of society around you, including how to behave. So if you look at the list here of things and ways that you're taught things, the most obvious way is the sanctions program, so the rewards and punishments. Every school has its own system of rewards and punishments, detentions, house points, whatever it might be, that tries to reward good behaviour and punish negative behaviour and show you what is acceptable. And if you think most children will start school at the age of 4 or 5, the education system has a huge impact on what you believe to be right and wrong. Your teachers are role models, rightly or wrongly. You copy your teachers. You want to emulate what your teachers are. Your teachers shape your views about certain subjects, about certain ideas. And again, that can be positive or negative. You also might look up to older students. So older students are role models. They kind of set out what's acceptable and what isn't, and younger children look up to them, whether they realise it or not. As well as that, don't forget what you learn can help to shape your norms and values. So I'm thinking here of particularly subjects like PSHE, phil and ethics, where you learn things like tolerance and respect, learn about other religions, shaping your views of what's right and what's wrong, and what's acceptable and what isn't. Media, another arguably really strong influence over how we behave in many different ways. So celebrities are role models, fashion, icons, things like that, teaching us what to wear, what not to wear, what to listen to, what to eat. You could argue Instagram and the whole kind of revolution in the world that's happened as a result of that is a massive kind of secondary socialization tool. It teaches us what we should be wearing, what we should be eating, and what all of that should be looking like. The news also does a lot to shape our views on what's acceptable and what isn't, and teaches us our norms and values. It tells us how people are treated when they do something wrong. For example, if you watch any kind of news program, they'll be like, so and so was sentenced today, or so and so's been arrested. All of that reinforces our ideas about acceptable behaviour, teaching us that bad guys always get what's coming to them. And there's an interesting thing we're going to dig into a lot deeper as the course goes on about stereotypes and how the media shapes our views on things like gender, ethnicity, wealth, power. What it teaches us to believe, if you think about gender stereotypes, if girls are growing up only seeing women doing certain things in the media, being there for their appearance or working in the home, it shapes their views and sort of tells them what's acceptable and what isn't. But this again is something we will dig into in a lot more detail as we go on. So the media has a really strong influence from a very young age in teaching us our norms and values. Religion is also an interesting agent of socialization. Um, for many people, the influence of religion is on the decline. Fewer people every year claim to be religious and go to church or another place of worship, but that doesn't mean it's not influential in shaping our society. For people who are religious, they will use the beliefs and teachings of their religion to shape their views about what's right and wrong. So I've put some examples on there. For example, the Ten Commandments, the Five Pillars of Islam, or the Noble Eightfold Path for Buddhism might teach people literally this is what's acceptable and this is what isn't. And religion is one of the more explicit ways. And it tells us that there will be punishments and rewards if we don't follow those rules. So if we follow the rules, we get to go to heaven or we get to nirvana. If we don't follow those rules, we get a bad reincarnation or we get sent to hell. So there's a very clear sanctions ladder for religion. Even people who aren't religious live in a society where religion has shaped our world. So I don't know if you know, but many of our laws are based on Christian ideas. Many of our laws are based on things like the Ten Commandments. So religion does, whether you believe in God or not, does have a big influence on how you live your life. And then the peer group and the influence that that has. So your peer group, the definition of a peer group is the people around you of a similar age. It doesn't have to be your friends. So everyone in your class is your peer group. Everyone in your year, everyone in the school is your peer group. It could be your friends, school colleagues. It could be people in your football team or your netball team, people you go to scouts with, whatever it might be. But all of those people in that you kind of hang around with or are around on a regular basis count as your peer group. They don't have to be your friends. And for many young people, the peer group has a strong influence on how you act and behave. So peer approval is very important to many young people, particularly to teenagers as people are trying to strike up their own sense of identity. So therefore you might adapt and change your behaviour to fit in. They can literally shape your norms and values, tell you what's acceptable and tell you what isn't. And that could be on anything from fashion to music, but also to beliefs, to attitudes. And I see this, as somebody who works with teenagers every day. If one person says one thing, it's quite often that someone might follow suit and they kind of follow and accept what others have been saying. So hopefully it's a simple enough concept and you understand it. Please email me if you've got any questions or you don't understand. Today's task is really straightforward. Can you make sure, firstly, that you've got a definition of secondary socialisation written down? We'll talk about why definitions are really important later on. And then just copy and complete this table. So go through the four agents of secondary socialisation: education, media, religion and peer group. And can you just write a sentence or two explaining what it teaches in terms of norms and values and how it teaches it? And it's as simple as that. And then for those of you who do that really quickly and want an extra bit of challenge, I'd like you to focus on the media as an agent of secondary socialisation. Choose a newspaper. If you have these old-fashioned things called actual paper newspapers at home, grab one. Or you could go on something like the BBC website, the Times website, even something a bit less highbrow. You could choose, or any magazine that you have at home, or a website that you have, or pick a TV show, any TV show. It could be the news, it could be a soap opera, it could be your favourite show. Have a look at what messages it's teaching us about the world we live in. What is that telling us, either explicitly through its words or implicitly by what it's showing us, about what's acceptable and what isn't? How are people treated who don't stick to society's rules? Then dig a little bit deeper. What's it telling us about women, about the roles of women, about the part that women have to play in society? And what's it telling us about men? If you want to go into race as a very topical issue at the moment as well, something we'll be looking at over the course of the next 2 years. I can't wait to see what you find out. I've been so impressed by the numbers of you doing these extra challenges as I've set them. So well done. Don't forget to upload me all your work so that I can see and just make sure I can get any answers to questions that people have. Take care.